good? All right, very good. Jack, thanks for the introduction. Thanks for inviting me here today, and it's good to be with you. What I want to do over the next 2 weeks is talk about Jerusalem and give you a brief history of Jerusalem. So what I thought would be a fun way to introduce Jerusalem is to talk about the 8 gates of Jerusalem. Jerusalem is actually a city that's got 8 gates into the old city. And then next week talk about the 8 dates of Jerusalem. Not me dating in Jerusalem, but the actual 8 significant dates throughout the history of Jerusalem. And by learning the geography of Jerusalem this week and learning about some of the significant dates of Jerusalem next week, you can actually have a history of Jerusalem that can help you inform kind of not just make the Bible come alive, but help inform a lot of the things that are going on today, maybe some of the things that you read about, and give you some context for that. So sound like a plan? Okay. Thank you again for the invitation, and it's very good to be here. I've never been out here before. Wonderful building. I ducked into part of the worship service there, and it's just it's a beautiful place to be. So let's talk about the 8 gates of Jerusalem. Jerusalem is my favorite city in the world. I've been there, I don't know, a dozen times. I used to, when we could do this, take Iowa students there on archaeological digs. I can't do that right now. Legal keeps telling me I can't do that right now, and I respect that. But when we took students there, one of the highlights was coming down from the north and going in our weekend in Jerusalem, spending a time there. So 80% of the Jerusalem's industry is tourism. I'll show you a little bit of that. But it's a beautiful, beautiful town. By the way, this is the western wall of the old city, not the western wall. So this isn't the holiest site. This is actually the outer old city wall. This is looking at Jerusalem in an aerial view from the southwest. And here you can see the Temple Mount. We'll talk more about that. This is Herod the Great's Temple Mount. And then if you look carefully here, you can see the old city wall. So Jerusalem is a modern city, a big modern city with all the problems of a modern city, like Des Moines or Los Angeles, more like Los Angeles. It's got all the problems. You can see here the western side of the city. This is typically understood to be Jewish Jerusalem, modern Jerusalem. And then the eastern side of Jerusalem, East Jerusalem, this is more Palestinian side Jerusalem, although it is being annexed. The Israelis are annexing a lot of this, although this here is the traditional dividing line. You can still kind of see the traditional dividing line between East and West Jerusalem. But in the middle, right in the middle of it, you can see the old city wall, if you look here carefully. Right? This is called the Old City. And you can even notice how much more compact everything is. So the buildings are tight, everything's pushed in together. And then Jerusalem is, we'll look at this in a second, divided into 4 quarters, like a football game, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the 5th quarter here is the Temple Mount. And so we'll look at all this today, and I'll show you that into this old city, there are actually 8 gates. So there's massive walls, most of them built by the Ottomans or rebuilt by the Ottomans. And then there's 8 gates, and that's what we want to look at. So just to give you an idea of where everything is, most people can find the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque just to the south. The western wall is always just to the west. So this here is the holiest place in all of Judaism, the western wall. I always remind my students that the western wall is not the western wall of the temple. It's the western wall of Herod the Great's retaining structure. So the temple's gone. It was replaced 600 years later by the Dome of the Rock. So the Jewish temple, the second temple, once stood there, the one the Romans tore down in 70 CE. They also built, the Muslims did when they came in and conquered the land, they built the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So that's here. This is the western wall. You can see a portion of it there. And then you can see the gates. And what we're going to do is everything in red, we're going to go around the city and look at the gates around the city. That's our plan for today. Yes?
From an elevation standpoint, was it built on the highest part of the area?
The temple? Sure. There is an outcropping of rock that sticks out, so it's like an acropolis in any city. There's an outcropping of rock, and we think that's what the temple was built on, the Solomon's temple and the second temple. And has anybody been, I guess I should ask, anybody been to Jerusalem or been inside of this? Did you get a chance to go inside of the Dome of the Rock? I was able to go in there before they started banning Westerners, and they banned Westerners from going into it. They're starting to loosen that up a little bit. They did that in retaliation to after 9/11, when we started restricting TSA, made it harder for people to fly. They said, okay, well, you're not going to go in there. And I tried very hard. Allahu Akbar, and I tried to, and they just said, no, you do not, no, you're not going in. But before that, before 9/11, you used to be able to take off your shoes, you pay your 2 dinar, or your shekels, and you could go into the Dome of the Rock. There's an actual outcropping of rock that you can visibly see. And so the actual underneath this dome, instead of being like an altar like you would have in a church, there's a big outcropping of rock. So that, we think, is where the Jewish temple stood. They built this in its place. This is a shrine, not a mosque. It's octagonal. Fun fact, it was built by Christians. Because when Abdul Malik in 691 built this, he wanted the best architects at the time. And the best architects at the time were Byzantine Christian Roman architects. And so he hired these architects. So technically built by Christians, and they built an octagon like many of the Christian shrines. The mosque is this Al-Aqsa Mosque here. So yes, it is the Acropolis. The highest point with regard to the old city, this here, this little thumb here, down here, is the old city of David. So when Jerusalem was 1000 BC, that there is the original city. And the highest point would have been that corner right there. We'll talk about that in a second. I always try to get everybody to do the Spock. With your right hand, do the Spock. Can you do the Spock thing? Now turn it upside down and look at it. That's Jerusalem. There's an eastern hill, and that's the city of David. There's a western hill. Today, that's Mount Zion. Back then, this was Mount Zion. So Mount Zion has moved in the past 2,000 years. Mount Zion's over here. And the temple would have been right there. And there are 3 valleys. I'll walk you through these valleys in 1 second. And the valleys are these spaces. Here we are from the east. Again, this is up above the Mount of Olives, up here. So you're looking and you can see the long retaining wall that Herod the Great built, the Dome of the Rock, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Oh yeah, I've got the points here. I can show you there. And then this valley here, that's this. That's the outside of your hand here. So this is the Kidron Valley, running all the way down. This valley over here that comes around, this is the Hinnom Valley. Some of you might recognize that Hinnom. The word for valley is Gai in Hebrew. So if you're going to say the Valley of Hinnom, you would say Gai Hinnom. Gehinnom, 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 Gehinnom. Maybe you recognize this word. This is where many of the people the Canaanites used to sacrifice their children. The Israelites used to use it as a trash dump. So it was always on fire. It always smelled like sulfur. It always had worms. It always had, and so they just called it Gehenna. This is the place that always smelled like sulfur and always had burning and fire. And so Gehenna became the word for hell. But it's a real place. It's right. I've been to hell and back. It's right here. You can go there too. You can go to hell. It's right there. This is Gehenna. This is the Kidron Valley here. And then there's a third valley, the Valley of the Cheesemakers, that's right down the eastern slope, right in between, but it's all filled in today. They've built it up. Okay? So here's another way of looking at it. The blue is the Kidron Valley. The purple is the Cheesemakers, or the Tyropean Valley. And the green here is the Hinnom Valley. And so you can see Jerusalem was was able to be defended and survived for so long because basically the only way to attack it is from the north. And if you look at history, the way that Jerusalem has always been conquered is from the north. It's just too hard to push battering rams and up these steep hills. And then here's our 8 gates. And that's what we're going to look at. So here's a way to look at it. We'll start up at the top with the Damascus gate and we'll work our way around. We have Damascus gate. All of the gates, or many of the gates, are named after, if you walked out that gate and kept going, that's what you'd go to. So if you walked out and go to the north, you'd end up in Damascus. Herod, this one's called Herod's gate. This is the Lion's gate, or St. Stephen's gate. This one's the Golden Gate. You can't go in and out of it anymore. It's been walled up. The Dung Gate, that's really its name. The Dung Gate. And by the way, it leads out to the place where they burn all the trash. The Dung Gate leads to the Hinnom Valley. The Zion Gate, because it's now on the Mount Zion. Remember, Mount Zion used to be here where the temple was. But Mount Zion has moved. It's shifted over here to the western hill, so this is Zion Gate. The Jaffa Gate, if you get here and you walk west, you'll end up in Jaffa. You'll end up in Tel Aviv. And then the new gate, as I call it, the Catholic Gate. As you'll see, there are 4 quarters in Jerusalem. None of them are called the Catholic quarter, because the Catholics built all their stuff out here, and they wanted a gate, so they just punched a hole in the wall here. So this is the newest gate, and they have their own gate there. Now, has anybody been to Madaba in Jordan on one of their tours and seen this map? This is one of my favorite archaeological remains. This is a mosaic map. If you look carefully, you can see all the little mosaic tiles. And somebody in the 6th century AD, 6th century CE, made a map of the Holy Land. And they built a church over it. So this is now the front right 20-30 pews of a church. This is on the floor. So nobody gets to sit up in the front of the right, because this is a map on the floor of the church. And in antiquity, maps were always drawn not with the north facing up, but with the east facing up. So east is this direction, north is that direction, south this way, and west up. And that's just how maps worked in antiquity. It's a new thing to have north facing up. So here you can see the Dead Sea and the Jordan River. Dead Sea, the lowest point on the face of the earth, and one of the saltiest bodies of water. Those of you who have had the opportunity to be in the Dead Sea, by the way, you're the last generation to see it. It'll be gone in 30 years because it's evaporating so quickly. All the water is being pulled off for agriculture and for drinking, and so it's just evaporating. But it's the salty, and if you get in the body, you walk into it, and after a while it starts trying to push you back out. It's so buoyant that you float. You can't sink in it. It's a weird feeling, very viscous. It's too salty, so you'll see the fish are swimming this way, and then all of a sudden they're like, uh-oh, and so the guy knew, right? So the fish is coming back this way. He's like, can't go in there, right? And you can see that they put the names of cities. Here you have, if you can read your Greek letters, Jericho, right where Jericho is, just to the north, just to the west of the Dead Sea. And then here you have Hagiopolis, Jerusalem, and then it cuts off here. So this is Hagiopolis, the holy city, Jerusalem. And they've built this big Jerusalem. Again, I always say you look at a map of the Dead Sea, you find the north end of the Dead Sea, and you go directly west, and you'll find Jerusalem. And they've mapped out Jerusalem here. Let's see what else we can find. Bethlehem. So it's a pretty accurate map from the 6th century. But what I want to focus on here is Jerusalem. And if you take a close-up of Jerusalem here, you can actually see, now this is a Roman map. This is after Hadrian banned all the Jews, leveled the city, made it into a Roman city. You can see the Cardo coming down. You can see the Decumanus. But you can actually see gates. You see the gates that came in on the city here? So we want to look at these gates. Here are the 4 quarters. The 4 quarters. In the northwest is the Christian quarter, and by Christian we mean Orthodox, Greek Orthodox. And this is where the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is. Up here in the northeast is the Muslim quarter. The Jewish quarter is right here closest to the western wall. And the fourth quarter that a lot of people forget about is the Armenian quarter. The first people to adopt Christianity before the Romans were the Armenians. And they stayed to themselves, they're pretty quiet. Fun fact, when the Islamic Caliph Hakim banned church bells in Jerusalem, they started using wooden knockers. So they'd have a piece of wood and they'd have a big, and they boom. And so you'd hear all this wood knocking. And then when he was gone and they allowed you to use bells again, the Armenians kept the wood knockers. So when you're standing up on the Tower of David and you hear the call to prayer, and Allahu Akbar, and you hear the church bells going off and it's this big cacophony, you'll also hear these wooden knockers going off, and that's coming from the Armenian quarter down here. So the Armenian quarter, the Jewish quarter, the Muslim quarter, the Christian quarter, and then out here the Catholics are like, hey, what about us? And so they started building all of their buildings just outside of the old city, and they ended up punching a hole in the wall here called the New Gate. And so that's the straight in here to come in, quick shot into the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Let's talk about these 8 gates. The first gate is the Damascus Gate. It's also the Nablus Gate because it goes up to Nablus. It's also called the Gate of the Pillar. It's on the northern side. This is what it looks like. It's a massive gate, as you saw here, built in 1537. Now the gate's been there since the 1st century, but the gate as we have it now is a big Ottoman gate. Massive, beautiful gate. You can see kind of a moat going in front of it. So there's a big plaza. You walk across. You'll go into this main structure. You'll make a left turn. You'll walk to the left. You'll make a right turn, and then you'll go in. And the reason for this is you can't just take a battering ram and knock down the gate and go in. This is an ancient defensive structure. So you have to go in, you have to make a left turn because everybody is right-handed. Remember the story of Eglon and Ehud, right? Everybody's right-handed. So you got to turn to the right, and so the soldiers have a free shot at you. You got to march in, and then you got to make another left turn to go in. And so that's what you do to this day when you go through the Damascus Gate, to go through. Up here you'll see the arrow slits. You'll see the crenellations on the wall, very ornate. You can see all the houses on the inside, Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And this is the beautiful, beautiful Damascus Gate. And again, you can see it there on the Manama map. They made it big, they made it central. There it is. Now, if you look down below it, you'll actually see, here's the entrance to the Damascus Gate. Down below, you have this earlier gate from Hadrian. They call this Hadrian's Gate. So this is actually, archaeology has shown us, the original gate into Jerusalem. You'll notice that it's about 30 feet below, 30 feet below street level today. This is a common thing. When we get to the Western Wall, you'll see that what we know as the Western Wall today is about 30 feet above about the street level today. So this is the original gate down here. By the way, there are also guys down here who will be happy for a price to let you into the city down through this if you don't want to go through the Damascus Gate up above. But that's what the Damascus Gate looks like today. This is standing at Damascus Gate looking back out north to the city. So a lot of tour groups start here. You sit there and you do you're getting ready to go in. Here you are getting ready to go into it. This is inside of the Damascus Gate looking south, so looking into the city. Once you get inside, all of a sudden you're going to start wandering through the cities of Jerusalem. My favorite thing to do, go get lost in the old city and then try to find your way to the Dome of the Rock or the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. You can walk through the streets and you'll hear 14, 15 different languages. You'll smell all the smells, most of them nice, right? You can go shopping, you'll meet people from all over the world in this one city. I told you about the arrow slits. To this day, the ancient soldiers and the archers have been replaced by modern security guys, but you can see them up there sitting in the windows, and here is what it looks like sitting in the windows, looking back out that way there. Here's what it looks like being inside in the market, looking back out at the Damascus Gate. And here's a good shot of it at night. to see how vibrant it is. So this is the main entrance from the north going into the old city that separates the Islamic quarter from the Christian quarter. And this is where most of the tours that aren't at the Jaffa Gate, most of the tours start up here. This is on the Green Line. So the Palestinian side is on the East Jerusalem is on the east to your right, and Israeli or West Jerusalem is on your left. So this is a very popular place to begin because it's right on the Green Line. When I stay in Jerusalem, I like to stay right on the Green Line because it is the least likely place to get attacked in any way. Because nobody wants to hit either, you don't want to hit the other side. So that's the Damascus Gate. To the east is Herod's Gate. This has several other names, the Flower Gate or the Sheep Gate. So we're moving on the north edge to the east. It's a much smaller gate. So you can see it there. You can see it coming in. The Crusaders built a church near the gate, and they thought that this was Herod Antipas's house. And so they just named it after Herod. You can see it here from the top. Unlike the Damascus Gate, it's just a small little fortress coming in the middle of the wall. Straight shot, no angle. Okay, so this wasn't an ancient defensive structure. This was a smaller, straight-in structure. This is the gate that I use if I'm not taking a tour group. If I just need to get somewhere in the old city, I just run down here. Now, this one you got to know where you're going because this is more of a residential neighborhood. You see, you don't see the. Sometimes it's just closed, and they make you go through the Damascus Gate. But this is a more convenient gate. It leads to the Al Zahira neighborhood in the Muslim Quarter, which is where it gets its Arabic name. It has nothing to do with the Herodian family. The Crusaders just thought that the Herod Antipas's house was there. According to some accounts, Godfrey of Bouillon, the Crusader, entered the gate through a breach located around here and named it after Herod the Great. So this is one of the minor gates, but it is one of the 8 gates going in. But again, you won't go through this gate if you're on a tour because it's off to the right a little bit. Okay, here's one. There's no gate. You're on the north. Now you're going to come around to the east, and you'll find St. Stephen's Gate. Now, if you're on a tour, especially if on a Christian sites tour, you will go on St. Stephen's Gate. It's also called the Lion's Gate. This gate is called St. Stephen's Gate because it is traditionally the place in Acts chapter 7 where it is said that Stephen was taken out of the city to be stoned to death. So this is a martyr's gate. It looks like this. You can see again, it is a straight shot through. So it wasn't an ancient defensive gate. That also goes in just to the north of the Temple Mount into the Muslim quarter, into the Islamic quarter. If you look carefully up here, you can see the lions, where it gets its other name, the Lion's Gate. This gate existed in the 6th century because we have it on the Madaba map. So you can see just right here to the north of the Temple Mount, you can see the Lion's Gate coming in. Here's what it looks like from the inside coming into the gate. If you've ever been, if you like singing, especially if you like a cappella singing, or if you like singing in a quartet, or just inside, like where I'm standing, is St. Anne's Chapel. This is St. Anne is Mary's mom, Virgin Mary's mom. That chapel is famous for many things, that being one, but it's also incredibly well constructed. And so one of the things I like to do is take students in there, and there's a stone in the chapel that you can stand on. And if you stand on that stone and speak about this level without the mic, just start singing whatever song. We used to go in there and sing "O Sacred Head" or a slow song. The way that the acoustics are, you'll start singing and it will start reverberating off of all the different walls. and it will just echo and build on itself. And so you can sing at regular voice, and it just resonates, and it's beautiful. I've been in there just singing for a couple of seconds with my students, and had tour groups come by and start filming us singing, thinking we were part of the choir or something. It's a beautiful. Ever get a chance, go to St. Anne's Church.
So, the majority of the gates you show, people are walking through the gates, but here's a gate where the vehicles can
Correct.
drive through.
This is the first one that we've seen where a vehicle can drive through. So the Damascus Gate, now I have seen somebody try to drive through the Damascus Gate. And they tried to, a little buggy tried to get through, and he got wedged in there because you have to make that turn, which was the purpose of those turns. Herod's Gate is small. They keep it closed. They have these small little delivery vehicles. Americans like big cars. Over there they have these little things that can fit through them. But this one is actually a facility gate. So they get ambulances in there. So this one is actually designed and has been expanded a little bit so that you can actually drive through. Yeah, question?
Is this the only one where vehicles can drive?
No. I'll show you a good question. There's actually a gate that is exactly the size of a tour bus. And it's even got the rounded corners. But you got to be a really, really experienced tour bus driver to drive into it. So we'll get to that one. Good question. So this is St. Stephen's Gate here. They call it the Lion's Gate. They're actually panthers that are into the wall up here. But this goes into the Islamic quarter. And again, there are some Christian... St. Anne's Church is one of the Stations of the Cross. So if you're ever doing the Via Dolorosa, so it's got an Islamic name. It's also got this Muslim name. Yes, any question?
It was just, I see it like if you look straight, what is that thing that looks almost like a gate?
In here? Yeah. So there are old ancient arches in the old cityway. So some of the buildings were built with arches that get smaller and smaller. Some of them get bigger. So once you get into the city, there are places where vehicles can operate. There are some main roads within the old city, and this is one of the ways now that they can get into the city from the eastern side of the city. It's incredibly difficult to navigate in the old city. Jerusalem, yeah, it's a modern city, but in the old city, there's an half art and half science to move around in there, which is why when there's a disturbance in the old city, especially if there's a fire in the old city, it's so hard to deal with. This is what it looks like as soon as you get in there. So it's actually a nice place to stay. It's in the Islamic quarter. It's right next to the Temple Mount. But there's a lot of really nice hostels. A lot of the college kids learn. Just inside of Stephen's Gate is a lot of the cheap hostels that are very well known. And again, you can see the panthers and the lions right up there. All right. Here's one of the more famous gates, one of the ones I like to talk about. This is the Golden Gate, or it's often called the Gate of Mercy. It is the eastern gate that leads into the Temple Mount. So this is the main Temple Mount gate. The problem is it's been walled up. So this is the one when you go up on the Mount of Olives, if you go to Jerusalem and you go up to the Church of All Nations or you're there in the Mount of Olives, this is the one through which, when Jesus, in the triumphal entry, when he's going down past the Gihon Spring and he's coming up into the city, this is the one that he goes through. This is the one that the Messiah is supposed to go through. The problem now, of course, is that it is walled up. And it was walled up for a very specific reason. We don't want the Messiah coming through here, so let's wall it up. And the story, this is a guy who can walk into closed rooms, right? This is a guy who can come back from the dead. Walling up a wall isn't gonna stop this. One of the reasons is, and there's many gates like this on the Temple Mount, is it's a gate that actually goes under and pops up on the top. So it's not a gate, it's not of steps on the outside that, like we have today that go. It actually is like the Colosseum, where you go into the building and walk up steps that then bring you inside of the structure. which means if you can get into the steps and you do something you shouldn't do inside of it, you can actually cause problems for the internal integrity of the structure. And so they like to wall those off. But the reason was always a theological one. This gate was known and it was open in the 6th century. We can see it there in the model map. But today the Golden Gate is walled off. You can see it from the Mount of Olives across over there. And it has a history of being associated with the Messiah. So if you read Ezekiel 44, then he brought me back to the outer gate of the sanctuary, which faces east. Remember, this is a straight shot. You go through this gate, and you're going to go straight into the temple, which sits up on top. Because the temples are going to face, the opening to the temple is going to face east, right? Where the sun rises, where new birth, right? So this is, it faces east, and it was shut. And the Lord said to me, this gate shall remain shut, and it shall not be opened, and no one shall enter by it, for the Lord, the God of Israel, has entered by it. Therefore it shall remain shut. Only the prince, because he is a prince, may sit in it to eat food before the Lord. He shall enter by the way of the vestibule of the gate, and shall go out by the same way. And because there was a biblical tradition associated with the Messiah coming into the temple, now, later the temple would be destroyed and it would be gone, but because there was this prophecy about the prince, the Messiah coming back to it, the later caliphs weren't necessarily excited about this. And so you have a tradition. This is the gate where the Messiah would come through. So the Ottoman Sultan Suleiman I sealed it off. So when the Ottomans took control of Jerusalem in the 16th century, they sealed it off to prevent the Messiah's entrance. The Muslims also built a cemetery in front of the gate in the belief that the precursor to the Messiah, who was Elijah, right? Elijah is supposed to show up before the Messiah does, would not be able to pass through since he's a priest, and the priest can't come in contact with dead bodies. So one of the most expensive cemeteries in the world is right here in front of, because the idea is that the Messiah is coming back and he goes by your grave, you're going to get raised from the dead, kind of like, the bones of Elijah, right? Coming through. So Solomon I walled this off finally, but you can see if you go through, it actually comes through, it pops up on top of the Temple Mount, and it would have been a straight shot into the temple. So the Golden Gate is associated with Messianism, the return of the Messiah. And you can see it here in this one. This is Golden Gate, goes through, pops up, and it's just a straight shot to the temple, or where the temple would have been, now where the Dome of the Rock stands. So the Golden Gate is the one, even though it's walled off, that's associated with the triumphal entry and coming up into the Temple Mount. All right, let's talk about the Dung Gate. This is a fun one. So we've gone from the Damascus Gate, Herod's Gate, Lion's Gate, Golden Gate. Now we're going to move down here to the south. There are two gates on the south. The one on the east is the Dung Gate. Now what's that the shape of? There's a road, and it's the shape of a bus. So they have opened this gate up to literally be the shape of a bus. Now, the gate was there. We can actually see it on the Madaba map, here just to the south of the Temple Mount. But that's what it looks like today. This is one of the main vehicular entrances, and it's the straight shot to the Western Wall. So we actually have references in the Bible, in Nehemiah, when they're rebuilding the walls remember they destroyed Jerusalem, and then Ezra and Nehemiah, they're talking about rebuilding Jerusalem. And I went by the gate of the valley at night toward the spring of the serpent and the Dung Gate. This is the Sha'ar Ashpot. And I saw breaks in the walls of Jerusalem that were breached and the gates consumed with fire. Malkiyah, son of Rekav, ruler of the district of Beth Hakerem, repaired the Dung Gate. He rebuilt and set up its doors, its bolts, its bars. So they're talking about this gate or the gate that I'm going to show you next, which is why I put a star by the 8 gates. This appears to be the gate that was directly to the south of the Temple Mount. It is also known as the Gate of the Moors because of the North African immigrants who lived in the neighborhood next to this gate in the 16th century. The gate was widened by the Jordanians during their occupation of the city in 48 and 47. Remember, when the State of Israel was formed in 48 and 47, after the Arab-Israeli War, or the War of Independence, depending on which side you're on, the Arab contingency voted against the formation of the Arab state and the Jewish state, so they went to war. And the result of that war was the Israelis, the Jews, got Israel. The Jordanians occupied the West Bank, and the Egyptians occupied Gaza. So the Israelis got their state, the Jews got Israel. The Jordanians took the West Bank and East Jerusalem. The Egyptians took Gaza and occupied Gaza, and the Palestinians got nothing. And what the Jordanians did while they ruled, Jordan, while they ruled East Jerusalem and the West Bank, from 48 until 67, remember in the 6 Days War, Israel took the West Bank and Jordan went back across the Jordan River, as they widened this gate so that it could receive tour buses. Which is good, because they were one of the things that the Jordanians did really, really well in their country in Jordan and also in Jerusalem was they're really good at the tourism industry. These are all Israeli city buses. And one of the things that Israel does is many people who go to the Western Wall live in the old city. They go down, they walk down, they go to the Western Wall, they worship, and then they walk out. But there are some who don't live in the old city who just can't walk to the Western Wall. So they provide a city bus that will take you in as close as it can possibly get. Then you walk through security. Then you can go worship at the Western Wall. Then you can go get on the bus. And as you can see, but this guy goes very slowly through this wall because you don't want to be the guy that takes out the dung gate on the way in. And again, the dung gate leads to the Valley of Hinnom, where they used to burn their trash, to their trash dump. So the dung gate leads to the Jerusalem landfill, or where they used to burn all the trash. Now, about 20 years ago, they discovered what they call the Tanner's Gate. It was constructed in the 11th century. It appears to be a Byzantine gate, or the Byzantine dung gate, and it's just to the west of the dung gate. So this is why I put the star next to the 8 gates of Jerusalem, because just to the west there's this gate that they weren't sure, but it goes back apparently to the 5th century. And so they found this gate. It appears to be an industrial gate where tanners used it. They didn't use the main dung gate. They used just inside of it. And some people are using this gate here, but they do now have it blocked off. But it's not a very big gate at all. It's a pedestrian gate. And it's just, you can see there the dung gate here, and you can see where the Tanner's Gate is right here. It's not as big, it's just a pedestrian gate. This is more of an archaeological thing that was discovered recently, and they're trying to make it into hey, we have this 9th gate. No, it's just a small one here. But they did hire a muralist to come in on the wall just to show what it would have looked like in the 5th century. So this is what it would have look like. They do this a lot. If you've ever walked down the old Cardo in Jerusalem, they've got some of it redesigned on the original Roman floor, the pavement. Now, it's all high-end stores. There's like a Tiffany's down there, and so it's not like old Roman stores. It's like new high-end stores. But they do have the shops, the old walls, the old stone shops. And these guys pay a lot of money to rent out these old ancient quarters so that they can sell their high-end goods to tourists. The Zion Gate is just to the west here on Mount Zion, on the Zion Hill. So this is the western hill. Remember, we're doing this. The Temple Mount is up here, and this is now the western hill, which is now Mount Zion. This is Zion Gate. This is one of the main gates to the Jewish quarter from the south. So this is the Zion Gate. It was just called the Gate of the Jewish Quarter during the medieval period. Today, it's access into the Armenian Quarter. So it's the border basically between the Armenian Quarter, you can see here, which is here, and the Jewish Quarter, which is over here. Now, the Zion Gate, tour buses will come by here and stop and show you. What do you notice about the Zion Gate? Anybody see? Yeah, it's shot up. So it was one of the chief gates because it's on that southwestern side. It played a big role in the 6 Days War. And it shows you how thick these gates are and how important they were in antiquity, even in the 16th century, because these are M16s. These are, the Israelis fighting the Jordanians for control of the city. And these, if we get in there close, by the way, it's visible on the bottom map. You can see it there at the end of the corridor. But if we get in really close, you can actually see this thing is just taking all of those bullets, all of that modern warfare, and it's like, yeah, we can handle this too, right? So the modern soldiers were using this ancient gate as cover to get in and out of the city. Because the walls, you're not going through the walls. And so these gates, that's how strong they were. And they left, the Israelis deliberately don't go through and patch up this as kind of a standing memorial to the 6 Days War there on the Zion Gate. On the inside of the Zion Gate, you can see that you have to go in and make a turn. So they kept it small so that you can't take a tank through there, and you can't take any kind of Humvee in there. And if you're going to try to move some kind of artillery in there, you can't do it. You have to make this left turn. So no straight shot. And so you can see you got to come in, you got to take a left, and then they've got a mezuzah because you're entering into the city. So they put that one there. I always like this here. But there is actually what it looks like on the inside. So once you're on the inside, you go in, and then you take this direction. Now you're facing down the wall. And again, as soon as you get in there, there's another wall, and you're in the Armenian Quarter. So this is the main access to the Armenian Quarter from the south. It also provides access to the walkway on the gates. So remember I told you there's crenellations all around the old city walls so that the archers can get up there and shoot, and in modern times so that the soldiers can get up there and protect the city. And inside, and you can actually do a 360 perimeter walk around the old city today from up here. So if you really want to do a nice walk of Jerusalem, you can get up on this. There are some places where you have to walk through some people's backyards. But this walkway actually goes, because some of the houses are built right up against the wall, but you can walk on this walkway all the way around the city. Here it's just looking south onto the old city. Then we have the Jaffa Gate, one of the most famous gates in Jerusalem. This is the main gate to the west. So this is the main gate pushing into the to basically West Jerusalem, to the most affluent part of the Jewish part of Jerusalem. Here you can see it. Now, this is an interesting gate with a neat history, because it used to be a gate where you had to, no straight shot, you had to come in from the side and then make your left turn to go into the city. So this gate, instead of going in, making a turn, and then making another turn, you had to come along the wall so that the archers up here had a straight shot at you, and these guys could dump the boiling pots of oil on top of you. You had to come along the wall. Then you had to make the left turn and go in. But as you begin to notice, you say, but there's a road going straight in here. So why did you need that gate if you have this road? Again, Jaffa Gate on the bottom of the map. It's the main gate from the west. This is the gate that they like to light up. This is the big, beautiful, beautiful gate. But again, the gate is coming in here, and you can see this is one of the grand processional entrances from the west. One of the main, this is where they bring in their police vehicles. There's actually a police station right inside, ambulances. And now there's just a huge, wide road going into Jerusalem, right next to the Jaffa Gate. So you can see it here. Jaffa Gate, massive hole in the wall with the little gate right next to it. And this comes in and it splits the Christian quarter from the Armenian quarter and is a straight shot on the street down to the Western Wall. So it's an incredibly important strategic opening in the wall. And the question is, if you have this beautiful gate, and this is me standing in front of the gate, so you can see how big this is. It was a main entrance into the city. Why would you need this road coming in? And the answer is, it used to not be there. So this is one of the great stories of the history of Jerusalem, especially of modern Jerusalem. The gate would come in this way, and then you would take the left turn and you would come in here, and that's the old entrance. But right at the end of the 19th century, Kaiser Wilhelm II, remember this guy, the last German emperor? He was going to come visit Jerusalem, and he couldn't ride his white stallion through that gate. And he's like, I am the Kaiser. I am not going to get off I'm not going to dismount to go into Jerusalem. So he ordered a hole to be punched in the wall so he can do a grand procession into the city. And so he ordered this wall and ordered all this stuff. Can you imagine, just think for a second, a leader who is so about himself that he would tear down things that are old so that he could make sure that everything looks good for him going into the city. This is Kaiser Wilhelm, right? The Emperor of Germany. So he punched a hole. The gate's right there, right? But he couldn't do this. Now, that's how we got the hole in the wall right next to the Jaffa Gate, is that the Kaiser did this. Now, shortly after this, there's World War I, right? And the British come in and take out the Ottomans. And General Allenby is the famous general who helped conquer Jerusalem. And when Allenby did this, he's a good Christian man, but he's also a propagandist, right? He also knows how to do, he's a military guy. He knows how to do this. And so when he's conquering Jerusalem. But when he conquers Jerusalem, he says to himself, how do I show up the guy that I just conquered? How do I show up Kaiser Wilhelm? But do it in a way that's not political, but is something that looks good for me. And so what he says is he gets off his horse and he goes in to conquer Jerusalem for the British. But what he says is, I can't ride my horse into a city when my Savior rode a donkey. And so he got off his horse, and the old tradition is you walk into Jerusalem. And so when Kaiser Wilhelm flaunted this and punched a hole in the wall to do this, he never mentioned him. He just said, I'm going to do it the right way. He got off his horse and he walked into Jerusalem, right? And he came through the gate, and he came through and he walked in, and he made it about Jesus and not about the guys he just took the city from. Now, forget the fact that he's conquering Jerusalem for the British and not, giving. But that was the way that he did it. But the hole is there today because of Kaiser Wilhelm II. And they just left the hole there because it's a nice entrance into the old city. Okay, the new gate is the last one. This is the newest gate. It's built at the request of the French consul to provide access to the old city from the Notre Dame hospice completed in 1886. It provided Russian Christian pilgrims living at the Russian compound direct access to the Holy City, to the Holy Sepulchre, and of course it also provides access to all of the Catholic buildings that have gone up in that area. And when I talk about it being a new modern gate, this is there's no defensive structure or thought. I mean, it's just a hole in the wall, and they made it look nice, and there's nothing ancient or defensive about it. So this was about 1900 when they punched us in there. Following the 48 Arab-Israeli War, the Jordanian Occupation Administration had the gate sealed off because there's no defensive value to it. So the Jordanians also sealed this one off to help prevent the reconquest of it by the Israelis, because it is facing the Israeli side, the Jewish side of the city. This is the outside of it. You can, like I said, you can just see right into the city. So unlike all the other gates we've seen, this is just a literal hole in the wall that they dressed up. These are the 8 gates of Jerusalem. Damascus Gate, Herod's Gate, Lion's Gate or St. Stephen's Gate, Golden Gate, come around Dung Gate, Zion Gate, Jaffa Gate, and New Gate. And you also learned the 4 quarters, the Christian quarter, the Islamic quarter, the Muslim quarter, the Jewish quarter, and the Armenian quarter, and the 5th quarter, which is Herod's Temple Mount, which is now, instead of the temple, the Dome of the Rock, and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. When we come back next week, we'll look at 8 dates of Jerusalem, 8 key dates in the history of Jerusalem that these gates and this geography played a key role, and it'll help you learn a little bit more about Jerusalem.